So you've decided to go on the journey of becoming a private pilot. In this video, I'm going to talk about the big skills tests at the end. Let's go. So towards the end of your period of training, you'll start to get into the sort of sharp end, so to speak. Your solo is already behind you. That will remain one of the highlights of your life, I guarantee it. There's nothing quite like taking off in a plane for the first time on your own, knowing that there's no safety net and you've just got to do it, and you will. These are very, very safe things, and there's not much that can go wrong, and your instructor won't let you do it until they're really satisfied that you can and do it comfortably. So that's behind you. What you will have done is a bit of practice already, doing different maneuvers, doing navigation exercises, this sort of thing. There are three big practical tests that you then need to do. The first is a solo navigation, the second is a solo cross-country, and the third is the skills test. So on the solo navigation, this is typically an exercise to fly out to a point and return, following all the procedures for rejoining the airfield and of course landing, using the radio in between, and of course your navigation skills en route. It's a really good sort of simulation of some of the sort of bigger things that you will do in the solo cross-country and then the skills test itself. So by this time your instructor should have prepared you quite well. You will have done several of these, I'm sure, already. The only difference is having the confidence really to do it by yourself. Hopefully you'll be in an area that you're also quite familiar with. You do get to know the area that you fly in. I remember when I first went up, everything looked the same. In the southeast of England, it's like a patchwork of farmland and interrupted by villages and cities along the way, and all of it just looked the same. That will change. Over time, you'll get to know the landmarks and the telltale sort of little things to look for on the way. So that's the solo navigation. Then the next thing to think about is the solo cross-country. Also, by this stage, you will have done some landaways with your instructor, so you'll know the routes that you're going to fly. These won't be new. It won't be the first time you're doing it. You may have even flown the full circuit. Typically, what's required is 2 landaways. So you'll have a sort of triangular course that you'll fly. In my case, I did mine in the UK, in the southeast of the UK, and I flew from Waltham to Kemble, which is out in the Cotswolds, out west, and then up to Sywell, which is Northampton. That's a bit up north, sort of Oxfordshire, Northamptonshire area, and then back down to Waltham. And it's about 3 hours. It's a decent chunk of time, depending on the length of each section. You will be using a map, one of those sort of glossy maps, and you will have drawn it out, and you'll have your plog, your plan of the journey, radio frequencies, tracks, etc. And have a conversation with your instructor also about just having a backup of Sky Demon or something similar running in the background. Generally, these days they're pretty cool about that. You are in theory getting tested on your ability to do it the sort of old-fashioned way, so you should have the map out and be following that. But I certainly believe it's an act of good airpersonship to have that backup and the security of the magenta line if you need it. And then go over in your mind before you take off the joining procedures. What's the circuit height? What's the joining height of each airfield? Get from the airfields that you're flying to in advance which runway they're using, so you know what to expect, but also be ready for a change in that runway. That can occasionally happen, and sort of have that and role play it, at least mentally in your mind, what you'll do in that event. Probably the most nerve-wracking thing about the solo cross-country is getting lost. And it's totally normal to feel like that. I've been flying for the better part of 6 years, and I still from time to time get lost, and I have the confidence now not to worry about that at the time. You sort of figure it out, whether through Sky Demon or through a radio call, or through finally finding that sort of elusive landmark that you've been looking for. So don't worry, it's not catastrophic if that happens. You'll be in contact with the ground, with the various sort of ATC on the way. And if worst comes to worst, just talk to the radio and say, hey, look, I'm a student and I've just temporarily lost my way. Can you give me a vector, a track to fly to reach my next waypoint, whether it's a waypoint on the en route or actually the airfield itself. And the ATC controllers are super cool about that sort of thing. They really do slow down and make it as easy as possible for student pilots. Other pilots who are flying in the area will also obviously hear the call on that frequency, and they'll know to give you a lot of space and be accommodating in that respect. So it's a very, very friendly community, friendly atmosphere, and it should never become a safety issue. So if you do get lost temporarily, don't worry about it. You'll figure it out either on your own or with the help of the ground, the ATC. And then the final thing on the practical side of things is, of course, the big skills test, and that's the sort of final exam, if you like, a practical exam, where you'll really be put through the paces by usually the chief flying instructor, the CFI. There'll be a limited number of people qualified to give you that test, and they'll get you to do a little bit of navigation, a stall, recovery, practice forced landing, landing after engine failure after takeoff, perhaps some spiral recoveries, spiral dive recoveries, all of the sort of basic skills that you would have learned, different circuits, flapless landing, engine off landing, these sorts of things. All of those you will be super familiar with, and usually your instructor will give you a couple of, certainly if you ask them to, they will, they'll give you a couple of sort of dry runs at that skills test. It can be really, really nerve-wracking to do it. That as well is totally normal. You're being looked at, right? You're being judged, and this is the crescendo, the culmination of probably 18 months of work, and it's really important that you pass that milestone. Know that the flying instructor next to you wants you to succeed. They want to pass you, right? So it's only if you do something a little bit sort of absent-mindedly or a little bit silly that they might think actually not on this occasion. And even if that happens, don't worry about it. Generally it'll be one element or maybe two elements of the entire skills test. You won't have to repeat the whole thing. You'll just come back typically and do those things that you weren't strong enough the first time on. So don't think it's a catastrophe if it doesn't work out the first time. When you do finally get that news on the ground after you park the aircraft up on the apron that you've passed, there's nothing better. Perhaps apart from the first solo. Make sure you get that photograph in front of the aircraft, as well as one with your instructor, because you'll really cherish that photo for the rest of your life. Best of luck and happy flying.